Welcome to the Let's Talk Politics Alabama podcast with your host, Daniel Stover and Russ Sanders, where we take a look at Alabama politics like a drive down I-65 from North Alabama to the state capital in Montgomery and all the way to the Sugar Sand Coast.
I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit, for political purposes, my opponent's youth and inexperience.
We choose truth over facts.
I don't want to speak negatively. I said, though, that if I lose this election, maybe I'll end up moving to Alabama.
Someone has once said that actually, as long as there are final exams, there will be prayer in schools.
All right. Hey, guys, how y'all doing tonight?
Good about yourself.
Doing good.
Good to go.
Good to see that we have a special guest with us tonight, Mr. Representative, I should say, the Honorable Prauncey Robertson. How you doing, Prauncey?
I'm great, Daniel. Good to see you, Russ.
You
glad to be with you. Appreciate y'all inviting me.
You managing to keep everything straight in Montgomery?
Well, not been down there lately. Primarily working around up North Alabama here, but it's about as straight as it gets in Montgomery.
All right. Well, tonight we're going to delve off a little bit deeper into our what are the parties, what do they mean. We're going to talk about the local party a good bit and kind of delve off into the state party. And we thought that it was good because to have Prauncey with us because he's our former chairman. I'm the current chairman for Lawrence County, and all three of us are currently on the state executive committee. So I'll delve off into the local party here and kind of what we do as a party here, and y'all can kick in wherever you see fit. And I really need your help when we get to the state party and those wonderful resolutions that we like to sit through at the state party meetings. So just to kind of give y'all an outline of, how does somebody get involved in the local party, we have what's called the Republican Executive Committee. And so, what does that executive committee do? Basically, we are the nation's national and the state party's extension into the local areas. For Lawrence County, that's us. We organize the party. We try to have a meeting every month. During COVID, we kind of had to take a break from it. Just we do have an older group, and that's one thing that we're trying to do with this podcast too, is generate some interest from our younger people. But we do try to have a monthly meeting. Starts at 6:30 at Mel's Steakhouse here in Moulton. I've lost my train of thought. I have too many trains and not enough track there. We do have 25 executive members. There's 3 executive members per district. Ain't that right, y'all?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, 3 for each. When you say districts, they're broken up equally to our county commission districts.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then we have 10 at-large members. And those at-large members are across the county. They may be in, a lot of them are in the same districts, but it's a way to keep the districts represented, but also keep the state or our county party represented as well. Let me get rid of that.
But also, what determines how many each local party gets, how much representation they get at the local level? What is that? That's per how many people we have in elected office, correct?
Actually, no. On our local level, that's set by the local party. Our bylaws say that we have 25.
So we, as a local party, write those bylaws, and they've been in place for a number of years. They get adjusted every now and again, but when that happens, the executive committee, we call a subcommittee that will review the bylaws, and might could change some of those rules, but for a number of years, it's been set right where it's at, as Daniel described, with the 5 commission districts, 3 people representing each of those, and then the 10 at large. You're kind of referring to what goes to how many delegates or how many spots we get to go to the state party.
Yes.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
That's what I meant to say. I messed up on that.
Yeah, we'll get to that here in just a minute. Just if you want to get involved with the local party, best thing to do is show up at one of our meetings. I'll share the story again of how I ended up on there. I had a friend that invited me to the executive meeting. It was out at Caddo Cafeteria at the time. And Johnny Turner, he actually works for Mo Brooks now. And I showed up, and little did I know that I guess Johnny already had a plan in place that I ended up as an executive member that night. And I'm like, okay, what's an executive member supposed to do? Because I have no clue what's going on.
But Johnny, I think, was the chairman at that time, wasn't he? Or, he was for a little while. He was probably chairman and looking for someone to represent each of those districts.
Actually,
He got recruited.
I think he was treasurer at the time, and Mr. Poole was the current chairman at that time. That might have been just a changeover right then. But yeah, little did I know what I was getting into. I think Pronsy and Russ probably have about the same story of they showed up at the meeting and went, "Hey, fresh blood." So now, out of the executive committee, we elect our chairman and our officers from that executive committee. That's supposed to happen every year that the governor comes up for election, but usually it's more of a begging process than an actual election process. I think we begged Pronsy to be chairman after Shannon, when Shannon took off to run for Board of Education, and then I reluctantly volunteered to be chairman after Pronsy decided he wanted to move up to the state. So now
we tend to wear those officers out. There's a lot to do on that executive committee, a lot more than a lot of folks understand. And so usually if you serve, like you said, 4-year term there, you've spent a lot of time working with candidates, working on elections, trying to build the party, trying to raise some money to help the candidates. And it can be exhausting for some people. By the time those 4 years are up, a lot of folks are ready for a change and let somebody else take the reins. It's just part of the beast.
Russ, you're next.
I think we don't need to forget about our associate members too. You can also be an associate member if you get interested. There might not be an at-large slot, or I think we have some vacancies in District 1, but you still want to be involved and you still want to label yourself and associate yourself with the Republican Party. You can pay a small amount of dues and join as an associate member. You just can't vote. And any kind of executive meetings or closed executive meetings that maybe talking about sensitive subjects, you can't be a part of that. But basically, you can do everything an executive member can do and just be involved in an associate capacity. And generally, those people are the next ones in line that move up to the executive committee once vacancies occur. Some people move off, some people get busy, just life in general. And I've seen a lot of those associate members move into executive member slots just over my short tenure of being involved.
Yeah, one thing that I guess we've kind of been going through here the last few months, it's something that a lot of people probably don't really associate with the Republican Party, or they even, there's a lot of people that probably don't even know that there is an executive committee. But one thing that we got into, and we've had to do this a couple of times, but when an elected office is vacated, whether it be from retirement or in the instance we had a commissioner that passed away, usually the party that's in control of the appointment, whether that in our case it would have been like say it was Secretary of State John Merrill would be the one doing the appointment. We help them out because we are local. We do know the people around here, so we'll help them out to collect resumes, do some preliminary interviews and send down to them hey, these are your candidates and this was, kind of who we would suggest. We don't do the picking. They usually go through a appointment process themselves, do interviews and everything, but they like to have the local party input. So that's something that I guess probably a lot of people don't know that we end up being involved in. One of the other things that we do as a party is we have to qualify the local candidates. Well, what qualifies a local candidate? There's not much. Proncy, what's it take to run for representative? I mean, as far as qualifications.
Well, you have to, obviously there's district lines. And so depending on the office, do you live in the jurisdiction, right, that you're trying to represent, whether it's the county sheriff or a state representative. In my representative seat, House District 7, for instance, it actually touches 4 counties as a portion of it. So you have to live somewhere within that district. And then depending on the office, there is a minimum age, usually. It's associated with that. And it varies from office to office. So, but you're right, for most elected positions, there's not a whole lot of requirements. Sheriff, I think it's 21 and live in the county, for instance. So it varies though from office to office. A lot of people think the probate judge has to be a lawyer. Does not in Lawrence County. Now, even just in the last couple of years, there has been multiple counties who have passed legislation that in their specific jurisdictions would put additional restrictions on offices. The probate judge is probably the best example of that, to say that if you're going to run for probate, you have to be an attorney. We excuse me, we do not have that requirement in Lawrence County.
I think the age for sheriff actually might even be lower than 21. I ain't got it right in front of me, but I think
18?
I think it's 18 or 19.
I don't either. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the main ones that you actually have to have qualifications for would be like superintendent, the judges. That's pretty much it. Yeah, district attorney.
Yeah. Usually
county
the key
commission
is
Go ahead.
residency, right? So
Yes.
usually the key is your residency, that you live within the jurisdiction. And, we've had a lot of places have had issue with that when they begin to qualify somebody, have even let them run for office and then realize they don't live in that jurisdiction, whether it be a municipal race or one of the countywide races.
We actually had that
So it's
happen
very
here in
important that
Lawrence
the party
County.
get involved in that. Well, in a municipal race, that's right. And of course, those are nonpartisan races, which if folks don't understand that, our municipalities in the state of Alabama do not run as Democrat or Republican. They simply qualify with their city clerk or municipal clerk and run. The county and state level offices are partisan, and you do have to declare a party. And I know y'all have talked some about that, but that kind of lays the groundwork with what your party affiliation is, what your direction you're probably going to go in office is.
That's right. Some of the things that, when you look at qualifying for local candidates, for local offices, we're talking county commission, board of education. Those two specifically go along district lines. Superintendent, like you said, you've got qualifications there, not just being in the district or county. That's got education qualifications. Sheriff, that's another one that's countywide, but there's not much there. You've got your judges, your circuit, district, and probate. Probate's the only one that you don't have to have some sort of degree in. Coroner, revenue commissioner, circuit clerk, and DA. I mean, all of the DA is another one that has to have a law degree. But the rest of those, there's not much in the way of qualifications for those. You could, Joe Schmo could walk in here. Well, just take me for instance. I don't have some big financial degree or nothing, but there's nothing stopping me running for county commission, board of education, sheriff, probate judge, coroner, revenue commissioner, circuit clerk. Any of those positions are open.
Well, and of course, Daniel, the argument for that, especially like for the sheriff and some of the probate, some of those was they're elected officials. The people choose those rather than some qualifying reason that, like a degree or something like that might disqualify someone. In other words, the sheriff is an office of the people. Your state representative is an office of the people. And so the people ought to be able to choose who they feel like is the best person to represent their district or their jurisdiction.
All right. Going back to the party and what we're involved in and what we do. In the past, we've had a headquarters to support our candidates and host events at. This last election cycle, we decided not to do that because, well, we don't have enough people to work it. So if you're interested in coming and helping us, that's one of the areas that we could really use some help in is manning the headquarters. Let's see. As a party, we usually help as a group putting out signs, delivering signs. Sorry?
Put together signs like an assembly line.
Yeah, we've done that quite often at your shop.
Yep.
We have worked phone banks before. We've done door-to-door for candidates. And then I guess that kind of leads us down to what we have here in Lawrence County as far as representation at the state level in the Republican Party. Like I said before, we are that arm of the state party and the national party here in Lawrence County. So, and correct, help me out here, guys, but the way I remember it is each county in the state of Alabama gets a minimum of 3 representatives on the state committee, the ALGOP committee. Now, there is an Alabama Democratic Executive Committee, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. If somebody wants to come on and sit and talk to us and, give us that side of the aisle there, we'll be more than happy to have them on. But from the Republican side, we've got the 3 members. Usually it's the chairman, one that is elected off the ballot, which that would be Pronsy over there. that was on the ballot and elected to that spot. And then who's the third one?
Well, those others build in there depending on the number of elected officials you have in that county. Now, that's the way our bylaws have got it written in Lawrence County, Daniel. You know, some of that varies a little bit from county to county about what you're talking about there, who's on the state committee,
Right.
based on their local party bylaws. For instance, Morgan County does it much different. Everyone all of their slots on the state are voted on and elected by the people. And ours is a little bit different in Lawrence County, as you said. Our bylaws say that the 4 officers will automatically have one of those slots: the chairman, the vice chairman, the treasurer, and the secretary. And then the 5th one is that elected one that you're talking about. And and then we began to add others based on the number of elected Republican officials that we have in the county. And I think we're up to, what do we got? 7 slots altogether now. Is that correct?
I believe so. And you know, hey, trust me, these state meetings are not exciting. If you are suffering from sleep apnea or insomnia, go with us to one of these state meetings. You'll go to sleep. No questions asked there. I joke, but it is. I mean, we are working to help steer the entire state, and we are your representation on that state committee. Let's see.
Well, you know, the local party compared to the state, it's very important. You know, I mean, the number one thing that the party is supposed to do is to recruit and, you know, candidates for good candidates. And when I say good candidates from the party perspective, is candidates who are like-minded to the policy, the party platform, or those key things that the party considers Republican. And they can vary and change over the years, but they're pretty consistent. And I think that you guys have talked a little bit about that. But when we begin to qualify candidates for those local positions, we want them to, you know, they don't have to be word for word, follow, but the idea is to find folks that are like-minded, that we're a team. We're moving in the same direction, right? And that's the primary job of this executive committee, that voting 25-member executive committee in Lawrence County. And so if you want to have a part and a say in who is even on the ballot next time, that's the place to be. And how do you do that? You come get involved. Come to the meetings, fellowship with us. When there's an opening, if the majority of that 25 believe you're like-minded and you live in the district that's got an opening, you're very likely to get voted on like one of us did. And then you become a working member. We'll put you to work, right, guys? And begin to talk to folks, to communicate with our elected officials, and continue to promote that. And the state is just the next level up of that, right?
Yep. Well, I will correct you on one thing.
Okay.
We'll put you to work even if you're not on the executive committee, if you just show up. So, you know, we're always looking for people to get involved and help out, because we want to do more. We want to have more fundraisers. We want to have more events. And we need warm bodies to help in that aspect.
I think one thing that we just kind of cruised over a second ago when we was talking about like appointments and recruiting candidates and things of that nature. Basically, we vet candidates. So there's, you know, the candidates that run on the ticket there's nothing in their background as an executive committee that anybody's determined to disqualify them as a Republican. Now they could have some secret idealizations or things of that nature that maybe nobody's aware of, but just like people's social media presence, who they've supported in the past, a lot of that history is dug into, and our committee's pretty well ingrained in the community and would be aware of some of that stuff. So some of the executive committee serves as a vetting process, if you will, for any appointments that, if Republicans are in control of the appointing authority or what have you, then they're vetted through our party.
Yeah, we've had a few of those challenges in the past too. I don't think we had anybody that we had to remove from the ballot that I can remember, but I know in Madison County they did have to do that. There was a couple of times that I believe they done that in the recent past. Going back to the state party, though, I will tell you too that we actually just at our last meeting, I believe it was, we elected a new state chairman. His name is John Wall, and he's from Athens. He's a butterfly farmer of all things. We will try to get him on at some point, but the state party provides us with advice, tools, strategies, legal support. They also try to keep all 67 counties, what happened in each county, and it's just like banking and stuff. There's a lot of statistics that go into it, so they're compiling all that information all the time. One thing that I wanted to touch on, and we don't do it much around here in our local party, but there is a lot of it that goes on across the state, and it's part of that whole boring process at the state meetings. But there's a lot of counties and people that will present resolutions to the state party for passing, and those actually are supposed to go on to the state legislature. Proncy, maybe you can shed some light on that and tell us if y'all actually see those or not.
Well, I don't know that they are meant to send a message to the state legislators for sure, and to say, excuse me, this is the stance that the party is taking on one position or one issue or another. Sometimes they're very specific, but most of the time they're more of a generic direction. They'd say they're directed at one entity or another. For instance, they could be directed toward all the DAs or all the sheriffs, all the district attorneys, if you don't know what DA means. All the district attorneys or the sheriffs or the legislature, for instance, as Daniel said, to say, this is how the party feels about this particular issue. Is that binding legally or anything like that to those positions? No, they were elected by the people, and that's who, actually votes for me or any other elected official. Now, obviously, we're concerned, we're interested, we want to know what the party's platform is, what the direction is. For goodness sakes, we're signed on as Republicans, for instance. And so it does have weight when a local party or the state party passes a resolution from their executive committee with an opinion one way or another about something. But frankly, that's what it is, an opinion. And hopefully each of those elected officials are making decisions based upon facts and knowledge and information that they have that, believe it or not, even the members of that executive committee may not be privy to. So whether it's a sheriff making a decision or the DA's association, they're the one who answers to the people, not necessarily their party. And I think sometimes we can get off track with that, to think that, the party controls an elected official. They obviously recruit, try to find like-minded people who would naturally agree with the majority of things that the party would, for instance, put in a resolution. But ultimately, those elected officials like myself answer to the voting public as a whole. And once I'm elected, even though it says Francie Robertson, Republican from Mount Hope or from Lawrence County, I represent every citizen in District 7, which is not just Lawrence County, but again is the other 3 counties of Morgan, Franklin, and Winston County that I represent as well. And they all have their own unique interests and desires, whether one issue or another. Does that make sense, Dan?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's what those resolutions are really designed for, is to kind of let the legislature know, hey, this is the way the party feels. There's quite a few of those resolutions that come up, seems like every time we go to a meeting. I know Common Core is a big buzzword, and we've, I guess, pretty much stripped it, the majority of it in Alabama, but the buzzword keeps getting used, and that's one of the resolutions that we see come up nearly every time we go to an ALGOP meeting, is we need to do away with Common Core. I don't know as if the legislature is going to make us pass a law that says we can't use the word Common Core anymore. But that's one of those things that...
Yeah, well, that's another example of, what are you defining as Common Core? And that, we could have an hour-long debate about that.
Yeah.
And when we look at policies and laws and bills that have been passed over the last decade, what you said about eating away at, what originally was the Common Core concept, the Department of Education is on its 3rd evolution of what their curriculum policies were when it was when we started talking about Common Core. So there has been many, many changes, and to say we just need to do away with Common Core, what are you talking? What, there may be elements of that still that people see there, and that's really what we need, folks who are concerned about that, to drill down into. And let's talk about specifics. What is it that they're teaching, or what curriculum is there that you see as a concern? Because it's a lot more diluted than just, a Common Core or not at this point.
Words mean things.
And so I think, that's one of those issues. Sir?
I said words mean things.
I'm sorry, Russ, I just didn't hear what you...
I said words mean
Absolutely.
things.
And a lot of times yes, and many times we get a certain piece of terminology attached to one thing or another and get very passionate about it. But the question is that definition you're calling Common Core, for instance, if that's what we're talking about, there's lots of elements within that. And lots of those elements within it have been adjusted and changed. And for us to come now and just say we need to wipe out Common Core, we can't even define what you're talking about over here anymore, because it's changed so much over the last decade, over the last especially 2 quadrenniums at the legislature, for sure.
I think a lot of those resolutions that are passed at the state party, like some of them brief really well, and you can get people fired up to get motivated and get behind them. But sometimes if you get in the weeds on some of them, it's easy to talk in generalizations and vagueness, but actually putting together a piece of legislation or shaping a train of thought, getting other people to agree with you, and working as a statesman, if you will, to work with your other partners in legislation to get something through. It's easy if you're an unelected person to get up in front of a bunch of people that's like-minded and talk very bombastically and get people to agree with you and get fired up and get enough votes. But it's a different thing to actually put that into work. And I think people don't give legislatures and people in office time to enact some of that stuff.
And let me just say, we're going to have to wrap it up here. We're reaching our time limit, but a couple little things here in closing on that subject. I don't see us stopping that resolutions process. There's some good things that come out of that.
Yes.
One of the things that come out of it this past time was the patient rights that Senator Gudger sponsored, to allow somebody into a patient's room that is terminal, even during a pandemic, so that they don't die alone. Mm-hmm. And that was a good thing that came out of one of those resolutions.
And I didn't mean that about every resolution. I want to make go on record saying I don't mean that about every resolution. There's a few of them that I've seen that's kind of out there.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to say. There's some good things that come out of.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Daniel. That's a good example, the one you just mentioned, to where there was a resolution that said, from a overarching approach, this is what we would like to see happen. The legislation itself can be a lot more detailed than that has to really drill down and spell out some specifics. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. So is the legislature ignoring the resolutions from the state party? Of course not.
No.
But every entity you can imagine passes resolutions every week while we're in session. The county commissions, the DA's association, the sheriff's association will pass a resolution saying we want this or that to happen. But those are just messages about what that group's opinion is about it. Mm-hmm. And then it allows us as legislators to take that and drill that into law.
Well, guys, we have hit our time limit here that we've set. We're going to try to keep these around 35 minutes or so. I will say in closing that, we are looking for good candidates here in Lawrence County. And if you consider yourself a Republican and you want to get involved, maybe you want to run for office, make sure you come and join us at our meetings. Mm-hmm. Also, we're doing this, but if you would like to be a sponsor, talk to Russ or I about, becoming a sponsor of our podcast here. We will hook you up. We might even let Proncy take and do the ads, But in ending, like we always say here, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the like button. That helps us out a lot. You're helping us grow. If you're listening to us on a podcast, make sure you give us 5 stars. And if you're on Facebook, like our Facebook page. And most of all, share. There's a lot of people that don't know that much about what goes on in local politics, and that's what we're trying to do, is help educate. So, all right, guys. Well, that's all I've got. Proncy, Russ, let y'all have the last words there.
Y'all be careful.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you guys for letting me join you.